Hi, it's Gadget UK here again, back for part 2 of the TerribleFire MSX2. It's actually a 2 Plus, as you can perhaps see from the title there. Yeah, so in part 1 we got the board generally up and running, but there was some instability problems. Lots of carts that I'd been creating weren't working, and there were just a few issues. One of the things is the 2 Plus ROM here wasn't working with the VDP I was using. So starting off here, just trying to pick up on the cartridge issue. Now I had this working before this game. Everything I do here now is making no difference. I've just bumped up the power supply to 5.1, measuring here, got 5.1. I'm just going to warm this up, just to see if it's an impedance thing. Yeah, still hitting basic. Let's just make sure that cartridge is in again. Yeah, and we'll just warm up again, and just keep power cycling it here, while we just warm all different areas. Just to see if impedance changes anything. I'm just going to go around those little resistor packs in the middle there, just in case it's something around there. It's important to note that Stephen was using the 9958, but I don't think he'd done the modifications you need for a 9958, which made, I think, both of us perhaps wonder if he had a 9938 that had been rebadged as a 9958. Yeah, trying it that way up. And yeah, just putting the ESD wrist strap on. And just dabbing my finger onto each of these points here, just to see if any additional capacitance makes any difference with a power cycle. So I'm sure I tested this game previously, and I just can't get it to work. I kid you not, I've spent hours reseating it, cleaning it. I've cleaned up the PCB, cleaned up the edges, cleaned up the slot, tried it in both slots, tried slightly different voltage levels, heated the board, cooled the board. It's like, I don't know, it's like driving me nuts. I am sure this booted at some point. So maybe this has failed, maybe it's something to do with the chip that's on there. Now you see, the thing I haven't shown is I built one of these, I lost the footage for this, but I built one of these with jumpers on here. Yeah, so like the moment that's set to, I think 64K or something, we need to change those for this chip in a minute. But I'm just going to take this off, go and check it in the programmer. If it matches, then I don't know what it leaves me. I could try it on here again, change the jumpers back accordingly. If it works then I don't know, it's something just to do with the socket being on there and the jumpers or something. I don't know, it's bizarre. I'm hoping this chip's just bad. Maybe my memory's incorrect, because I've produced 7 or 8 of these carts at least, and maybe 9. Maybe I'm mistaken and I haven't actually tested this one yet, but I'm darn sure I did. I'm sure this is the second one that I did, and I'm sure it was working. So yeah, hopefully this should come off easy. You could do this, something like this, almost upside down, like this, and then the solder flows the right direction. That makes the process much easier. And keep sucking after, like that, to collect the solder into the chamber properly. You can see that's coming off really easy. Well, I say you can see, you can't see. Can you see the pins there? Yeah, I'm still not sure that is free, to be honest. It's it looks mostly free. Oh, there we go. Hang on a minute, there's no pin there. We've got a pin missing on that side. How's that pin missing? It's just not there. It's not folded up, there's just no pin. So, is that the problem? Maybe that pin was like kind of detached, but it's nowhere to be found. It's not in the holes. Yeah, it's like the pin came out with the solder station, maybe. So, maybe that's the answer. So here I'm just soldering a thin resistor leg on to replace that missing pin. And I can't just replace this chip, by the way, at the moment, because I don't have any spares. This is the last one, so let's just trim that. I mean, the worst case is if this works, I could just solder it in like that back onto the PCB. Strange though, isn't it? It's strange, where's that leg gone? It's like, if I'm pointing you up at the studio like that, can you see? there's no pin in any of the holes there, so it must have either gone up the desolder station or never been there to start with. Well, it's really strange. As you can see, it's now booting it inside that cart with the one that's got the jumpers and stuff on it. So, yeah, I just can't really understand what's going on here. I verified it, and there's no problems at all. So the only difference is, obviously, it's on that cart now, with the one with the jumpers and the socket, and occasionally it's booting, as you just saw. So maybe it was just that pin, because it was, you know, some of these are flaky at best until maybe it's warmed up a bit. Look, it's booted again. Yeah, so let's try hitting fire again. It's working now, look. So, you know what? That pin must have just been hanging on. Maybe that's the issue. Because it's wired exactly the same. Unless there's a problem with this PCB. I don't know, but then again, it's froze again, look. There's only one player. So, I don't know, it seems sulky no matter what, this particular game. I'll perhaps speak to Stephen about this and just mention this particular game, because obviously, you know, analysing something like this could help the general stability here. You know, if you can work out, and I'm guessing what it's going to be. It's going to be some issue where one address bit is interfering with another one somewhere. It could be like some parasitic capacitance, but it could be just as a result of a bit of timing. You know, a timing change somewhere could just tweak that so that you don't get that kind of behaviour. At this point, I tried track and field 1 again, and that wouldn't work in either slot as well. No, that's not booting in that slot now either. But what is it about these track and field games? I don't know. Because it's like I say, I take that out, and let's say put Green Beret in to the same slot, the outer slot. I bet this works. That isn't working now, is it? Oh, God. Let's try on the inner slot. Yeah, look, that's worked, doesn't it? That's it for it. That looks alright. That looks alright. And it's working. So, yeah, this is the thing. So, what is it about the track and field games? I don't know. Right, and I'm going to get so much hate from this, I always do. You knew the copper tape was coming out, didn't you? Anyway, things like this, yeah, are for stupid people like me to work out where there might be issues with maybe layout, etc. This is not the best way of doing something like this. Stephen Learey would have this on the logic analyzer and spend, I don't know, 20 minutes looking at logic analyzer captures and go, I can see what it is. It's a specific bit here, you know, an address bit. When a certain address range is, I don't know, it coming into place, some issues glitching out somewhere, data bus has been affected or something. The whole point is, this is like, what's the word, play school. This is the play school way of working out where issues might be. And if I switch this on, right, it's flaky. So the copper tape has revealed 0, yeah? But what you can do, you know, it's a process of elimination. What I've done is eliminated there. I'm not sure if this is a 4-layer board, it probably is. But the bottom line is there's no ground around lots of those traces there. Which means, obviously, you know, 99 times out of 100 it won't boot. I just can't get this game to boot, as you can see. It'll just boot, loop like this, no effect. But the other thing is, and I tried this to start with look, that's almost working there, with, to a lesser degree, you know, lesser success. But I found that if I press just around where the ROM is, I can almost get this to boot. Just pressing in different areas here, you know, over a load of long traces, just to see what effects that has of me adding a bit of capacitance there. Right, so I've worked out the issue. I've had to put the heater on here. I'm blooming freezing. It's actually these cartridges. The cartridges are the issue. I'll show you. So you can see there, it's not booting. If I just hold the cartridge a certain way here, now I've got some copper tape on there which has made it get to this state, this point. So hang on, you saw, we can solve it a bit differently. Yeah, you saw something there, hang on. Watch. See, it's booting. This is me adding some capacitance there over some of the connections. Bear in mind, got some copper tape on it as well. And it works. Without that, it won't boot at all. Yeah, so the issue is this, unfortunately. But Banjo Gali can do a redesign. There's no ground plane around these traces here, and it's the same issue that you get on the Famicom adapters. You know, they have some traces like this, you know, right angles and things, lots of wires going all over the place. You can see it more clearly on this PCB here. If you look at the layout, see it's you know, it's quite a lot of routing going on here on both sides. Yeah, so we've got copper tape there on that side, and me adding just a little bit of capacitance over the area up here. It might be these traces here, seems to solve it. So I think, because we took the chip off here and tried it in the socket, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some copper tape under there, up here as well, maybe a bit down here, and again on this side, and then reintroduce the chip and try it. And I'm guessing it may work every single time at that point. If that's the case, then it just needs to do a redesign of this and add some ground pour all the way around this, and that would solve it. It's not this. I think we can remove all that. I don't think it's doing anything at all. I've noticed no difference from any experimentation around this board. I think this board is solid. I just think it's all about the cartridge here. My workbench is getting in such a mess here. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry if you can't hear me very well here. I'm thinking of changing my channel name to the Copper Tape Guy. I bet this works just because I've seen this exact behaviour on the Famicom adapters that have also got lots of right angles here, lots of wires, lots of routing in a confined area like that, in order to get those connections on the right places. You know, there's an art to PCB layout, and I'm not I'm not the person to consult for sure. Just adding pieces of grounded copper tape to create an artificial ground plane over all those traces. So yeah, there we go. Right, let's give it a try. I do of course need to tidy up somewhat here because I have stuff everywhere, and I don't want anything shorting. So it's just including the power. There we go, power and ground, they're separated. So we'll put it in the first slot because it seems less sulky there. Be interested to see if it makes any difference which slot it's in now as well. So place your bets. Do you think this is going to work or not? I think it's going to work. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? There we go. Oh, hang on a minute. Still not right. The fact it's booted though shows that actually it doesn't need that copper tape. I think I just need one or two more bits on there. There's those long traces at the top. That might be the issue. But look at that. It's fairly consistent. I still think that glitched because the title screen thing scrolled up too quick there. Yep, still glitchy, look. Oh, it's just reset itself. Yeah, we're almost there. So it does need a wee bit more copper tape on it, but that is definitely the problem. Absolutely the problem. It's like I could power cycle this 100 or 200 times and never get beyond the MSX bit here. And I'm pretty consistently getting the Konami bit coming up, but then it zoomed past that, didn't it? So there's still some glitch. Yeah, so that's way longer than it probably needs to be. There's a capacitor here with the ground, so you know what, we can just join up to that. It's nice and easy, isn't it? There we go. And again, we'll get it into that position there. Right, I've just moved the copper tape down a bit because there are a few ripples in it. Let's just see if that makes any difference, because ripples, well, do make a difference. Yeah, so it's still flake booting, isn't it? Let's call it that. It's flake booting, but it is booting. That one was normal boot. Let's hit fire. Yeah, don't know, I'm holding judgment just for now, but after flattening the copper tape, it's working, isn't it? Ah, now it's gone again. But we are almost there. I'm inclined to think the long ones. Yeah, there you go. So you've got a piece of copper tape there, right to that cap, because that's the ground. Yeah, there's another point I'd like to add here as well, and that is about the device, the chip. The chip can make a difference to a problem like this, you know, slew rates and things, you know. As it's reading data back from that ROM, differences between ROMs could make a difference. The fact that this maybe has got a WinBond chip on there versus an Atmel or some other older EEPROM could make all the difference. Anyway, that is now grounded around there, obviously not both sides. Similarly, you know, not both sides here. Might need to do that bit there, that long bit, might need to do here, but I don't know, let's just give that a try. If this was the problem, I would expect at some point it to be 100% reliable every single power cycle. And we aren't at that point yet, I don't think. Or are we? No, we're not. So, maybe there's multiple things here. Maybe it's not just about this car. So the extra copper tape made it worse. I did try both slots too. So after pretty much encapsulating it in copper, there's still a bit on either side to still do. It's about 90% of the time, maybe even 95% of the time, it's mostly functional, as you can see. I mean, it's really annoying because I really don't want to put this level of copper tape onto every one of these. What I may do is just experiment with different EEPROMs, because you know what? That could make a big difference as well. You can see it is working. Yeah, I was going to say, if this makes a difference, it provides a clue. I think unlikely, but you know what? We just got to just step through the motions here. Or is it? Actually, it could be, because that's worked. Didn't work the first boot there. So, I don't know actually. I'm thinking it could just be a chip select thing. But it didn't boot the first time. I don't know, is that copper tape not flat maybe? Let's just see if we can get through an event or two on this. No, there we go, it's frozen already. So, yeah, that has made a difference, but not enough on its own. At this point, I remembered all the copper tape on the TFMSX. I removed that to create a level playing field. I'll be glad when I finish messing with this copper tape. And of course I waste like 99.9% of this copper tape. It's only ever used for things like this in general, and a lot of trial and error stuff. So yeah, I need a piece about that thick. So our ground is top left there, so that's this top pin here. Let's just see if it's grounded. There it is. Make sure there's nothing to short there. There isn't. Let's get it in. Let's get these things out of the way. Check the power connections are good. Switch it on. So it's not really a level playing field, is it? Guess what I should do really is get into the PCB, solder that chip onto it, and then start adding the bits of copper tape. I mean, you can see after a few reboots there that's working now, but how stable it will be. Where's the joystick gone now? Yeah, let's just hit fire. So I don't know, you know, it's almost there, that one, isn't it? It did take a few power-ups though. Just wondering why it's just two up there. Is that normal? I don't know. Yeah, it seems to be, these are just the times and the scores, aren't they? It's a weird way of showing it. Why would you show two up first? That might be a Japanese thing. Probably is. You know, showing something on the other side rather than that side, you know, because I think they read from right to left, don't they? Could be wrong. It's the same with Arabic, as far as I understand. So anyway, that hasn't crashed, so I don't know, maybe we're there then. So that's good news then, because we've got a piece there and a piece there, and that seems to be dealing with the majority of the issue. Now if that is the case, then some of these other carts, I'm not sure if I've showed them all yet, I've got like Hypersports here, some of these are really flaky. I can try the same thing on those and just see if we can get them stable, just with a bit of copper tape without having to remove the chip. So let me test these now. Let's try Hypersports 1. Anyway, that does seem to boot, so let's power cycle that. I'll try another game. So this is Hypersports 2. Again, boots straight away, no copper tape. Really mysterious. Ooh, I like this one, skeet shooting. So again, starts, no problem, game works. Crazy, isn't it? Konami nailed it with this game, didn't they? They really did. I love this event as well. Plays just the same way on the Spectrum and the Amstrad and stuff. Anyway, that's working. I can't also remember which was the other game that was struggling a little bit, because there's one or two others that are just a tiny bit flaky. I mean, again, that one's booted straight away. I wish he'd stop changing lanes when I change lanes. Why is he still riding like he's racing? Anyway. Oh, God, my arm. Triple jump. Well, anyway, I think that one's working. It just works, that one. So let's try Kings Valley. I think this one just works as well. I could be wrong. You know what? I think it's just Track and Field 2 that was playing up here. No, look, that doesn't work. So Kings Valley is a wee bit flaky. It may work after 2, 3 or more power cycles, but this could be a good one to see if we can apply that fix to. Yeah, look, rebooted. May work now. There we go. And I really don't understand how it starts to work after a reboot. That's the thing that doesn't make any sense to me either. Let's try Track and Field 1. Now I think this works without issue, I don't know. Yeah, look, Track and Field 1's a bit flaky as well. Yep, so that's definitely a contender for copper tape. Yeah, 3 power cycles there. Track and Field 1 doesn't work, so we'll give that the treatment next, I think. See if we can get that working. So on to the last 2 here. We've got Nightmare. Let's try this, and then we've got Green Beret. So that seems alright, doesn't it? So, fine. Yeah, that's alright. And Green Beret. I think Green Beret was a 32k one, wasn't it? So this is one of the ones where I had to do bank swapping. Yeah, and that just comes straight up. So we've got a piece of copper tape here. We can just simply stick that down. Actually, we just need to just cut a slight piece off the end. I don't know about that much. Right, that's some copper tape on there. Just need to ground it, don't we? Right, so I joined it to the ground there, just flipped it over and soldered that on. It's as flat as I can get it. Let's try that. Oh, look at that. A single piece of copper. And that's now booted. Is it going to be playable? Yeah. So, certainly on this cart, we proved it's that big, long trace at the top. Yeah, qualify was 14 seconds. Glad you don't have to do that 3 times in a row. What's next? Long jump. I'm not sure if you're going circles or what with this. Hey, that's not bad. Qualify with 6, we got 8.84. Ah, yeah, I remember this. I don't know what I'm doing on this. I don't even think you need to waggle. The annoying thing with that is if it's a foul, why not just end it straight away? Why make me watch it fly all the way out? It's like, I'm not sure how you control this. You can't do anything here, can you? You just got to. The other interesting thing is you can change the angle after it starts flying. You know, you're holding the fire button down while it's already flying. I may qualify with that, I don't know. No, I'm not. Oh. Yeah, the angle's way too sharp there, you know, too steep. Should have been 45, I think. Now, I'm not sure if there is another event in this or whether it's just limited to those 3 or so events. See if I don't. But I mean, look how stable that's been. That single piece of copper tape's working. 400 metre dash. What did we do before? Was it 100? Oh god. I'm not sure my arm can sustain 400 metres. The thing is, when you know what it's like, you play a game like this, you actually feel like you've been walking on your hands for 400 metres by the time you've finished. Is that 400 metres yet? Really? Is that 100? Oh my god, I've got to wait for that to get to 400 at the bottom. Yeah, you can see the marks on the tracks, that's what I'm watching. How is he going faster than me? Computer cheats, I'm sure. Oh, that's it. I'm losing stamina and I'm not even halfway. Now, halfway. 300, 310, 320. Come on, final mad dash here. Oh, that nearly killed me. It would have been easier to run 400 metres, I think. I'm not sure what that means. Does that mean I won the Olympics? I deserve to have won. Back to 100 metres, really? 100 metres after the 400 metres? Woohoo! Right. So I will test this off camera. I'll power cycle this a number of times and test track and field 2, but it looks like just that piece there for track and field 1. I'm not sure about track and field 2. Does it need all that stuff there? A good start to remove it, I guess. I mean, we've got that one piece there, so maybe it doesn't need all of that tape. But yeah, look, so that was a power cycle works, so we'll power cycle it again, just for good measure. I may get a bit on that other game now. What was the other one? Kings Valley. Yeah, Kings Valley was a wee bit flaky, wasn't it? So I'll stick it on there as well. Yeah, that's working. Just hit fire. Yeah, it looks like that fixed Kings Valley as well. That's instantly worked, so we'll try a few power cycles. See, that seemed to work. Let's just hit fire. Yeah, I'll start this on each occasion just to make sure it is actually starting. Right, so just for completeness here, I've removed all the bits of copper tape off track and field 2, apart from the bit on the top. Let's just give that a try. Yes, so it is just all about that top series of traces, and I think it's just one wire. It's like one address line that goes in between those two 5-volt rails there. So Strange, isn't it? And it does strike me actually that Stephen may look at this and go, you just need a resistor on it. You can either fit it on the board or on the cart, or a cap maybe. I don't know. Well, I think that's my best time on that yet. Right, that's all 3 of those caps off and the PCB cleaned up. Doesn't need them at all. Yeah, you may need them, as Stephen said, you may need some additional capacitance for the 2+ VDP. Yeah, and it boots every single time. Every single time it boots now. So I cleaned up and tested every single PCB, they're all working perfectly. Track and field 2, I redid the copper tape here. It was just still a bit glitchy. I wasn't covering enough of these 2 traces on the end here. After doing that, it was perfect, so I thought, well, let's investigate a little bit further. It's actually A14 and A15. There's a ground and a VCC here somewhere as well, but it seems primarily the connections here that we're covering are A14 and A15. So, yeah, it did strike me that it might not be this. We might be able to put, I don't know, a pull-up resistor or pull-down or a capacitor or something on one of those lines there. That might be the issue. It's the sort of thing that if you did a logic capture, of one that's working, one that crashes, and then compare, you may find it's that bit that's got some issue. Maybe A14's influencing A15, or I don't know, maybe there's a slight delay there. It could be ringing. That might be what's going on, because of the length of trace maybe. We're getting some ringing on either A14 or A15. So getting a huge amount of voltage drop with those original cables there that I was using from the power supply. So I got this really thick stuff, look at this, and it's silicon coated. It's like nice and soft and flexible, multi-strand cable here. I've just trimmed the ends off here and just twisted that, and I've got some brand new croc clips, and I'm going to solder a couple of those on. So even later, and many more carts have been spawned here, as you can see. I've got about 16 games there roughly now, I think. Just playing a little bit of the Goonies here. It's really good. It's a really nice game, this, actually. I like everything about this. The presentation of it, it is a bit sort of a cutesy sort of game, but like the graphics are nice, the sound's nice. There's some music from the film and stuff, the main sort of theme and stuff. I didn't know Konami had created this. I was aware there's a NES version, isn't there, like Play Choice 10, is that the same game? I don't know. But I like all the little traps and things, things falling down as you go onto the next screen. You get the little boulders coming up and down, as well as those little skulls that sort of try to attack you, and you can hit them. You can punch them and stuff. You've got the drips and environmental things. It's quite cool. Look at that water effect there. I quite like that. Yeah, I can imagine I'm going to spend a bit of time playing this. And it seems quite forgiving. You've got like a health bar there, and it looks like you've got an experience bar or something. I don't know what that is. Yeah, look at that. That's like straight from the film, isn't it? One of the boulder things coming up and down. So that's quite good. Yeah, and I haven't had to put any more of this copper tape on. All the games I've created today all work fine. It's just Track and Field 1 and 2 that seem to suffer that. I think there might be 1 or 2 of the games on there. Put a little bit of this on just because they're a bit sulky. But all the ones I created today, and there's like several of them, they all just work. They just work fine. So yeah, very pleased. It's working perfectly. I've changed the sound chip here. I've got another one, so I've just been testing that. So I want to show you one of the issues. Can you see this is set to 5.4 at the moment? And if I measure between the USB ground and the right hand side of that cap there, you see that 5.2? Yeah, so we've got like 0.2 of a voltage drop, and there was more than that with the original cable I was just using. So I'm having to go 0.2 of a volt higher in order to get 5.2 volts on here. So we've got 5.4 on the power supply to get 5.2 on the board. And this is the sort of problem you can get with your cable impedance, the thick number of strands, the length of it. You get voltage drop over a distance. Right, unfortunately for me, handy for you, it's doing this thing again. Yeah, this bad connection thing, and I'm darned if I can find out what's going on. Switch it off, watch this. The first LED That's a power LED, and nothing else. The second one should flash when it syncs, you know, I don't know, it initializes and it looks for the USB, etc. But we're just getting that one LED. And as a consequence, on Yar Kung Fu, you can hit fire, which is interesting. I'm guessing the fire button's mapped a specific way. Maybe it's not handled by the arm. And if I hit fire, just watching on, pointed at the screen, hit fire. So the game starts. Yeah. And then if I try moving, you can see nothing. Can't move, can't fire, can't do anything. And I thought, I wonder if it is this. Maybe this is doing the input, so it's doing something with the keyboard, and it's like, because it's sending dodgy keyboard control things across, that's messing up the controller. Anyway, power cycling, you can see just one LED. Now just watch this, just press here slightly. Switch it on, hang on a bit harder. Maybe on the chip. There you go. See that? 2 LEDs. So, I don't know where it is. I have reflowed this twice. Maybe I should just try again with a little bit more solder. Can't be anything else round here. I've inspected that cap there, thought it was that, but everything around is good. These have been reflowed, the crystal's been reflowed, and everything else around there looks good. I mean, it could be something down here, technically. So, I've got a little bit of flux there. You can see I'm using the Antex here just because of the shape of the tip. And I'm just literally just going to drag slowly, like that. And I may add some more solder. And I'll inspect with magnification. Right, I've cleaned all around there again. Is this going to make a difference? I don't know. Will we have a short? Will it explode? I hope not. Yeah, so anyway, let's just connect the panel back up and we'll switch it on. Pay attention to the second LED. Yeah, it flashed straight away there, so I don't know. This is the thing, whatever it is, it seems temperature sensitive anyway. You know, so once this board's warmed up, that's when the problem starts. So you just press a little bit there, then it goes away. So I reflowed the side nearest the edge here, and the side nearest the USB here, and just a few pins up here. But the pins look perfect on it, so if it happens again, I think next time I'm going to reflow this chip here, even though I don't think it's got anything to do with it. I think that's a video encoder actually, or something. And I'm going to reflow this corner here and this corner up here maybe. Or maybe even that whole, those two whole sides of that. But they're really hard to get to. You know, when I originally built this, I melted the socket here. You can sort of see that I actually filed it down to make it look presentable because it was so uneven there. Technically, I should swap that socket, but you know what? You can hardly tell. I think with another little bit of filing just at that point there, where it's a bit wider here than it is over there, you won't be able to tell. Anyway, I guess the key is, can we start this? We can control it there. Now, this is where the controls were going. But you see, we've got both LEDs lit now, so I reckon that's going to be alright. Yeah, look. Working again. So I've got most of the flux and dust and fluff off there, so yeah, quick look around the board now. It's looking really nice. Yeah, you can see where I melted that socket just slightly there, so I'm just going to have another go at just filing that edge to smooth it down. Put a bit of silicone on it after you've done that, and then the whiteness goes, you know, back to black from where, you know, the plastic's been scuffed. And that's how this was. Actually, I wiped this with IPA. You should see the surface of this YM2149 here. It's scratched so bad, and it just looks like someone's put sandpaper to it. But anyway, with a bit of silicone just wiped over the top, it's, you know, the black comes back to the colour of the plastic, and you can see that here. Can you see how the bottom corner of that YM is shiny black? Yeah, so you can make your chips look glossy again. It's not a good idea though to put silicone all over your chips. Salt and vinegar's better. Yeah, so these slots, they were sourced from different manufacturers. This one was provided by Stephen. It's a better one, I think. You can see how this looks really gold and glossy, and this one looks dull. They're probably like brass or so, I don't know, probably not brass, but anyway, yeah, you can see generally presentation, it's not bad. There's the odd smear, there's the odd little bit of flux, but all of the fluff's been removed and stuff. Solder points on both sides of that are looking good, and you can see I stuck this on here. It's actually a cable grip, but I stuck it in the middle of the PCB, so when it sits on a table, it fits totally flat and level. Now, technically, I could put one under either corner here. One underneath the slots would be a good idea, and there's room for one there, so I may just stick another one there. So then when I push it, in fact, I'm going to do that now. When you're pushing the carts in, you don't do that. I've had these for decades, like 30 years or something, like 25 years. I'm never going to use them on my, so let's stick another one there. I want it to go bang in the middle. That's it. Up to the edge. Let's just press that down. Right, so that ain't going to be coming off on a hurry, but hopefully now, yeah, we've got some good stability there now. So, yeah, obviously, it'd be nice to stick this in a case. This particular revision, obviously, it's a Proto, it's the Rev 1. I'm sure Stephen will probably follow up with a Rev 2, perhaps. And, yeah, hopefully, these will be made available to buy. And then maybe ultimately open source it, but I guess it's up to Stephen at the end of the day. He might not want to do anything. This may never progress other than being a prototype that a few people are lucky enough to have. Myself definitely included in that list. Let's just clean the top of the
V9958.
I'll remove that bit of silicone from the edge of there. Yeah, but I am staying off that because it goes all horrible if that's it's cleaned up. Yeah, so I think I'm very, very pleased with that in terms of the build, but I'm super pleased that Stephen Learey sent me this PCB. It's incredible. It's incredible. He's done an incredible job. You know, and this is a complete system. This is not just an upgrade. It's a complete system. And Eric has done an amazing job on the HID stuff here, you know, for the keyboard, human interface device, you know. I'm assuming, now, I've not tested this, 2 ports, and the reason I haven't tested it, I haven't got a pad. I'm assuming the top port there may be for a gamepad. I've tested this for maybe an hour or so, and it gets pretty hot. Not boiling hot, not like on the 2060 or the 1230 where they do get a bit warm. It's just hot. It's as hot as that. So both those things get hot on this. So I'm just going to stick 2 or 3 heat sinks there and 1 large heat sink there, just to keep these things cool. Yeah, so it's not like it gets boiling hot, but it does get hot, hotter than I would have expected, and perhaps a bit hotter than I would like. So yeah, I am just going to try and squeeze 3 heat sinks in line there. I mean, we're going to be taking this chip out, actually, when I get the 9958. Yeah, that'll do. It's about as straight as I can get it, I think. Not quite central, but it'll just dissipate a little bit of heat there. So besides the layout of the cart PCB, and the cleanliness of the slots and the PCB edge here, the other thing that seems to affect the carts is actually voltage drop, and we're back to voltage drop again. I've got a 5V Sony power supply here and a DIY cable, and I actually think that maybe the gauge of this cable and the length of this is creating too much voltage drop, because if I power this, you can see the graphics are just totally scrambled on track and field again. So it's like, yeah, it just never ends, the issues with voltage, seemingly. I'm just measuring the voltage down here now. 4.78, I'll show you that. If I just carefully measure from the USB port to the positive, yeah, 4.8 volts. So we've got a bit of voltage drop. So I'll switch back to the bench power supply, but it should be alright now. The issues were with the PCB layout and the cleanliness of the slots here. But it's just important to note that you do need a really good 5V source for these. Well, this is a stroke of good luck. I revisited the pinout here. This is the 9958 that I thought was faulty. It's working, actually. You can see one of the pins here, pin 21, is now overhanging the socket here. That's the VDD pin, yeah, for the DAC, I think, or something like that. And I joined it to the 6th one down here, which I'd done a connectivity test for 5V. So that's the first thing. There are a few other differences, but I thought, well, let's just try that, because before it was just black screen and doing nothing. And if I switch it on now, this is with the standard MSX2 BIOS, look, it works. So I seem to have a functioning 9958. Let's now try it with the other BIOS. Now you could think that that's a 9938, but that's the video out pin, and it gave no video when that wire was not there. So that kind of gives me a little bit of confirmation that it is a 9958. Someone's about to say, use a PLC extractor. I have one. This socket is so low profile, it won't go in. Yeah, so place your bets. Do you think this is going to work or not? Maybe there is a subtle difference that means that the plus ROM here, hang on, trying to work out where pin 1 is, it's down this way. Yeah, maybe there's a difference there in timing on something. That means maybe it'll now work, I don't know, with that. Let's try that. I'd be surprised if it does, but you never know, stranger things have happened. No, look, it's not working again. So, I don't know, this is the confusing thing, isn't it? What's the issue there with the ROM? I actually think it's doing the same old thing it was doing right at the start here, where it's you know, mostly not booting. But you see there are some other pin differences. There's a couple of pins that they used previously for the light pen on the V9958. Those are no longer used on the 9958, and I think the use for H reset and V reset. I'm not quite sure what those pins are. I mean, I could look more at the design documents there to try and work that out. So another mod later, and it's very stable now. You can see the video wobbling a little bit. I think that's a mod Stephen told me about ages ago with the 9958, where you've got to join a couple of the connections with a cap, or even a wire, I think 2 ground points. I think that's why we're getting this waviness here. Yeah, so what I had to do there is H reset, or is it V reset, pin 4. Join that to ground. So pin 1 is, I think that's just reset the demo, yeah. Pin 1 is ground, so I've got a wire from pin 1 to pin 4. There is this waviness, as I say, I'll have a look at that next. But it's booting, what was that? That's my phone. I thought that was the MSX for a minute, making a weird noise. Yeah, talking to Stephen about this as I test this. Stephen just said, just short cap C35 to ground. Yeah, I'm going to share this footage with him now, actually. But that's really good because I've got a 9958. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So between us, well, not really between us, Stephen's the genius here. He's the one looking at this. All I've done is just look at a couple of pin differences with this chip. But it's interesting that with Stephen's Proto, you see, he's been probably aiming at the 9958 to start with. And that's what's been on his board, I think. So, and he's probably lost track of what mods he's done as he's gone along because he's prototyping. Yeah, and literally only 2 or 3 people have got this board. It is a proto. Anyway, yeah, if I can get that waviness solved, I'll be happy. But also, the point I was trying to make is Stephen's thinking about this, and I think he was saying he's done some clever stuff with ARIC, I think, in terms of simulating a real-time clock, maybe by the arm, I think, and he thinks that that might not be quite right as things stand, and with this BIOS here, he might be looking for that, and that could be where things are going wrong. So, yeah, you just got to understand, like I say, sometimes the chaos that can go hand in hand with prototyping. So what I mean is, like I say, you know, he's got all his logic analyzer connected up and numerous things all over his bench everywhere, and you know, he needs to test various things and he needs to find the time to do that to get to the point where he gets a conclusion of what the actual issue is. But I think at this stage he's suggesting it probably is the real-time clock stuff. This BIOS is probably doing something like looking for it, and something there is going wrong, which kind of would make sense because right from the beginning I was convinced there was some sort of kind of interrupt type thing, because it was strange, isn't it, how 20 or 30 reboots later you could get it to boot, and I think that probably holds true still. If I put this BIOS back in, even with the 9958, I think we'll probably get the same thing. So anyway, watch this space. There might be an update video. It might be within this video, honestly don't know, but right now I am chuffed to bits that my 9958 works. So again, remember this is a proto. Just reduce the voltage. I'm at 5.3 on the Agilent, which is giving us just over 5 on the board. And if I put it down to 5.2, just watch here, hang on, 5.1, see that? Yeah, this is the problem I was having with that Sony power supply. So back up to 5.3, went a bit too high there. Yeah, and the problems go away. Now, the interesting thing, if I measure on the cap here, so this is where the cap smooths the 5 volts, you can see 5.01, and if I measure on the VDD pin here, without shorting if I can, hang on, that's alright now, 504. There was a voltage drop a minute ago. Let's just check over here. I've just moved it a bit, so yeah, it's about the same actually. It's about the same. I think what I might do though is just put a cap. You know, I experimented with caps on this before and I didn't think they were needed. The graphics are back now actually, I'll show you that on screen. The graphical issues. So the power supply is 5.4. Issues go away. So yeah, where we're getting that, we must have got a corruption there. Where we get the voltage drop, that's where the strange things start happening. We've still got this wobbling. I think Stephen was saying it might be about decoupling. So, you know what? I think I may just stick a cap somewhere, perhaps underneath the RAM actually. If we just switch this off, hang on a sec, switch the output off, let's just have an inspection around here and see what caps we've got. We've got one here, look, but It's pretty small, it's like 22 microfarad or something. And there's one here, but it's kind of like central to these things. I actually think I might stick something under this RAM here. And we've got individual bypass caps around the RAM, so it's not like it needs 100 nanofarads. I may just stick a small, like a 47 or something, somewhere under here. Because it does seem to be VDP related, doesn't it? I mean, I could stick something under the VDP itself. I mean, it's not going to avoid the voltage, it's not going to solve the problem with the voltage drop, but it might do in terms of, current dips and stuff. Certainly with the 9958 here, because this is where I'm seeing this, voltage drop issues seem an awful lot less prevalent on the 9938. Yeah, so a 47 microfarad cap underneath that RAM there. That's made a 0.2 volt difference. What I mean is I've been able to go down by 0.2 of a volt, and we don't have the glitch in here. If I go down a bit further, so we're at 5.2 on the Agile at the moment, if I go down to, say, 5.1, see it come back? Issues? Yeah, back up to 5.2. Problems go away. Previously, I'd have to be at 5.4, and the voltage on the board is exactly the same, showing about 5 volts now, and it's showing 5 volts before when it was at 5.4. That shows there was some current dips occurring, which is probably why those little things weren't constant and just occasionally popping up. Current dips. So yeah, not enough capacitance there was the issue with that. It's not made any difference to the waviness. So I might stick another cap or something under there as well. What I would try to do is position them far away from things. So you know what, it's a good contender to have one somewhere underneath this cart slot, maybe even one on each of the 5 volt ground rails here. It's rock solid now, so it's just the waviness, which seems to come and go. You can see there, well, you might be able to see it's quite noticeable there. It's like this shimmer. So I don't know, Stephen was still thinking that it could be a decoupling issue, but it doesn't do that with the 9938. So I actually think it's a difference on the sync stuff. We might need to remove a resistor, or maybe add a resistor somewhere, I think. So I may look at the sync stuff on the scope, just see if we can see any differences there. But yeah, that seems a lot better. I'm tempted now, actually, and I think I'm going to do that. I'll power it off, put the MSX2 Plus ROM back in, see if it's any more stable like that. I don't know. Swapping back to the MSX2 Plus ROM, basic still wasn't coming up, just like in part 1. With the 2 Plus ROM, this is what happens. So, I think it's safe to say, not sure at this stage if it's decoupling, whether it needs a CPLD tweak, or whether it's just the real-time clock stuff, as Stephen mentioned earlier to me. What's different about the 2 Plus ROM? And the waviness is more noticeable with the 2 Plus ROM, which I find really curious. I wish I had some 2 Plus games to test with, that's the issue I've got right now. But you can see that's actually robustly booting now. Right, so I've fixed the sync issue. 330 ohm resistor. I think I need to do the same on the red, green and blue as well, actually. Yeah, they're at TTL level. That's the issue. So the sync now, solid. I need to measure it on the scope. I'll do that, I'll perhaps show you. I might need to go more than 330. Like I say, it was showing about 4 volts. But that solved it. Solid. Rock solid. I don't really see any shimmering like I did previously. Not quite sure why the shimmering was there without that resistor. In theory, the resistor could be reducing reflection, maybe. Anyway, it's working. I've soldered the resistor there. Got a piece of heat shrink tubing here. Yeah, I could cut this down, but you know what? I'm just going to sort of fold it up. Just get a wee bit of solder on there. Yeah, I don't mind that this yellow wire is going to be a wee bit big inside the Scart hood there. I just want to join that up with sufficient solder, just test it, good connection. Try and slide the heat shrink down and around and over the resistor. Yeah, I could shrink it, you know what, that'll do, it's not going anywhere, is it? It's going to be pretty taut inside the hood. but I'm only ever probably going to use this with this system. I'll just get another cable if I do get plus CPC. The sink is now right down where it should be. It's saying VMAX 700 millivolts there, 800 millivolts. It's probably not far off what it should be. So you know what, 330 ohms is fine. But we do need to do something with the red, green and blue. And what we really need is like a white screen here. The game screen's up. Let's just do one of the colours again. Yeah, you can see it's bobbing around like 1, 2 volts. Let's try one of the other colours. Screen's black in the one handset. I think that's one of. Hang on. I think that's one of them. Yeah, 1 to 2 volts there. Not really sure what the maximum level is there for the RGB lines. What it should be. You know what? I might just leave that because the colours look alright. It's not over bright. I think we'll just deal with the sync. You can point in the comments down below if you think I really need to add some attenuation to the red, green and blue. But nevertheless, if we look back at the sync again, and you can see there 880 millivolts. And if I look at its input to the resistor, that's where we were seeing, you can see there it's about 3.6 volts. It was 4 without that resistor. Yeah, so we do need that resistor, and that resistor has solved the shimmering. Yeah, and look at that now, it's solid. All of this is solid here. Normally this would be sort of wobbling like that. It's rock solid here. I'm very happy, and the stability that those 2 caps have added, yeah, it's only kind of like a marginal amount of stability, but it does make a big difference. You know, it is absolutely solid with those 2 caps. So I would suggest, Stephen, add 2 more caps, maybe even 3. Add a couple of caps around the slots, and at least 1 cap around the RAM. I mean, I've gone with 47s. I don't even think they need to be that big, to be honest. 10 microfarad and 1 microfarad probably do the job. And the resistor, I would think I would stick that 330 ohm resistor on the board rather than need to mod the cable. I did have a look at the board to try and mod the where it goes into the socket, but the trace is on the top side somewhere, and I can't quite work out where. So I'd probably have to pull the connector off to cut the trace. So you know what, I'm happy with things as they stand. The main thing is, it's got a 9958. It works perfectly. I just now need a cartridge that supports the plus 2, you know, the 2 plus. Anyway, let's just hit fire. Sweet. Yeah, so the other problem you get, as well as it not booting if you've not got that artificial ground plane on the these PCBs there, is, you know, get corruptions, or it'll reset, or it just won't work, you know, it'll just bomb out. But anyway, that's working, as you can see. Sweet. So yeah, early MSX games these, but they're just so cool. You can't get them when they're down the bottom, can you? I thought you could. So I increased the resistor down the sink to 390 ohms, just because it was still a little bit higher than I would have liked. You know, it's like 880 millivolts. I think it's probably going to be around the 800 or less now. I was looking at the specifications, and a lot of the signals are like 0.3 to 2 volts, but the sync, I think, needs to be lower. And I think that when you get it too high, that's where you can get maybe a bit of reflection going on. I'm pretty sure that's the issue that was causing that waviness. But anyway, it was working fine at 330, but there was just a tiny little bit of waviness occasionally. The other thing we're going to do while I'm here is get 180 ohm resistor between the black wire here. Now, this is a CPC 464 plus cable, isn't it? So normally that would be like one of the sinks, I think, because there's a cap across that to somewhere here. I don't know where it's going, actually. Maybe not, actually. I don't know what that cap's doing. The cap, sometimes they put it on the sink, don't they? And then feed it into one of the switching pins. That might be what they're doing, feed it into the switching pin there, assuming that either H-sync, C-sync or V-sync are coming across that black wire. But on this one here, the way it's wired, 5 volts comes across that. So that's how it's switching this into RGB. Yeah, that cap's kind of just on there. Unnecessary, really, that cap, for what I'm using this with, but it would be useful on a 464 plus where you're passing over that wire there, C-sync, yeah, and then the cap is used to change that from a pulse into, you know, kind of charge the cap up. You really need a diode though, don't you? I talked about that when I did that Atari ST video. You're better off putting a, you know, a low forward switching like 0.3 volts diode from that wire across into the positive, you know, and use a cap there to do that if you're going to do that way. But anyway, in this case here, it's just 5 volts, so I'm just going to have a 180 ohm resistor between there and the pin down here. I think it's like missed 2, isn't it? And that should switch the TV onto the right channel, because that's the other thing that annoys me. I switch this thing on and I have to manually use the you know, remote control on the TV to select the channel. Yeah, there we go. So technically I could put some heat shrink around that, but anyway, we've got that 390 ohm resistor there, 180 there from the 4th connection there across to where the black wire was, which is where 5 volts was going in. So that should switch the TV onto the right channel, as well as RGB, as well as the sync level should be a bit better. Hey, it's switched onto AV1. Brilliant. Yeah, picture's still looking good, colour's looking good, and it's perfect now. The tiny bit of wobbling that was there's gone. So yeah, I mean, I know I said it had gone before, and I thought it had, until I stared at it really closely and just saw that ever so slight little bit of wobble. Now it's not. No, it's solid. So 390 ohms with the 9958, and that's the other key here. I switched back to the 9938. I had no video, and it's because of that attenuation. The 9938 doesn't output quite as strong a sync signal. So yeah, if you're using the 9938 with this standard cable, it works without any attenuation. You don't get any wobbling. Sweet. So, a huge thanks to Stephen. Over the last few days, I apologise, I'm full of cold here. Over the last few days, he's done a few firmware updates. So, the second, you know, the outer slot is now reliable. There's a caveat, I'll talk about that in a minute, but it's reliable, and I think on the final version it will be 100% reliable. For me, it's, like I said, the caveat is about cleanliness of the cart PCBs. And it kind of goes beyond that, actually. If I just switch this off, it's not just about the cleanliness of the cart PCBs. There's a few things here. It's about the cleanliness. Hang on. It's the fact that when I got these manufactured, there was probably an option to have gold-plated edges, and I went with solder, I think. I just went with the defaults. You might have to do that on the actual design, I honestly don't know. But in any case, because I've got solder coating on there, that is adding a bit of resistive, you know, the oxidise. Left for a week or two, the oxidise a little bit, and you get just a wee bit of resistance. Yeah, can you see the difference there? This is the slot Stephen sent me. This is the slot I got from AliExpress, and I don't know how well that's going to come out. Maybe if I just rotate the board a little bit in the light, maybe even need the overhead light on here. Yeah, but this is like a gold sort of colour. This is like a dark sort of goldy sort of colour. So it's whatever they're coated with. Yeah, this is more susceptible to resistive problems with a bit of oxidisation as well. For me, here, if I'd got 2 of these, I don't think that'd be a problem. So what I mean is, like, once these have been cleaned up, I can plug them in and they just work. But I'll leave them for a few days. Any that have not been used regularly, put them in this slot. I get problems again. I'm like, insert, remove, insert, remove, insert, remove. Just doesn't work. Clean the PCB edge really vigorously there to get the oxidisation off. Plug them in and it works. So yeah, that's, let's say, the issue I've got here. So if we plug Twin B into the first slot, and I've also put another one of those little things under there, left these 2 capacitors in place, just makes a big difference actually in general to the reliability, the stability. It's absolutely amazing. It's rock solid robust. I mean, there are a few things I haven't worked out, like this is supposed to have, I think, 512k of RAM. With this particular 2 plus BIOS, I'm guessing it supports it, but you see, the MSX2 BIOS I was using before, sorry, I know that's scrunched up. Yeah, the MSX2 BIOS I was using previously would show a splash screen when you're booting into BASIC, you know, like the MSX thing, and it'd show you how much RAM, and it only reported 128k, didn't it? So I'm not sure if the MSX2 ROM could support more than 128k, and the 2 Plus can, but you see the 2 Plus doesn't have that same splash. If I switch this off and take the cart out, you'll see it just comes straight up with BASIC. The other thing that's mystery, you know, this TV, I've explained this before, sometimes more often than not, with the C64 it does this all the time, it drives me nuts. With the 9938, it hardly ever does it. With the 9958, as you can see here, it does it like 9 out of 10 power cycles. I don't know what it is. What is it with these Sony Bravia TVs? You know, I've updated the firmware on it. There's not a fault, and I know that because I can connect another source, like, I don't know, a Dreamcast or something, and it's perfect every time. Why my TV does that, but there you go. And it's not the MSX, but it's interesting there is a difference between the 9938 and the 9958 in terms of that issue with this TV. But look how crystal clear it is. It's absolutely rock solid and really stable. And another point of interest, I had to reflow that again. Kid you not. He started doing that same thing again with the first LED would light, the second one wouldn't. And I just pressed down here a little bit, power cycle it, and they both light. And what I did this third time, actually, is I powered it off and I pressed here with my nail just gently on these pins and switched it on. And then moved along a bit and switched it on until eventually I noticed both LEDs, so I knew which pin it was. It was somewhere, I think it was on this side actually, the left side near the top. So yeah, I just reflowed it again with a little bit of added solder, and that seems to have solved it. So I don't know, was it going to come back and haunt me? It could have been before we had this mount here. Obviously whenever you put a cart in, you know, you put in pressure here and it's kind of warping the board a bit. Bear in mind, this is a proto, so there'll be jumpers for the 9938 or the 58, so you won't need these wire mods I've got on here, and I'll show you those in a minute, which pins are modified there. It's dead easy to do. But he's also flipped these to the top side, which is where he intended to fit them to start with, and then he's looking at different cases and things. Obviously the idea is to put this in a case. I'll show you a case I've got that I might use with this actually. I also swapped the heatsinks out from the 9938 to this chip, and then I just put the 9938 away. It's useful to have in my collection there, but it works totally the same with the 9938 or the 9958. The thing with the 9938 though is I could just unplug this now, stick the 9938 in, it will work, but I have to mod my video cable because the 9938 sync is, even though it shows the same on the scope, it's not as strong as the 9958, which means the 390 ohm or even 330 ohm resistor means you get no video on this TV, so you've got to remove the resistor. So that's an interesting point there as well. The colours are perfect, the brightness level's just right. I can show you this actually, it gives me a good opportunity. It's been super sulky again. You'll see if I leave it in that slot, switch it on. You see, we just get basic up. I'll power cycle it. Hang on. Yeah, so you're thinking, okay, bad connection, so I'll reseat the cartridge. Plug the cartridge back into that same slot. Nice stiff connection there. Super sulky again, look. Switch it off. Stick it into the first slot. In a minute, if I can get it in. Switch it on again. It'll probably insta-boot. Oh, it hasn't done. I don't know, maybe it is just this cart, I don't know, but what I'm trying to get at here is this cartridge was used yesterday. It's literally just not being used overnight. Look, now we've got a problem. So it is just about oxidisation, but it's hard to believe, isn't it, that literally overnight you would need to clean the connections. It's suffering from MVS syndrome, as I described it to Stephen. You know, Neo Geo MVS. This is what they, look at that. This is what those are like. Where when you get this, certainly the ones with solder coating on, like that, it takes no time for it to oxidise. I think the next lot of these, if I have any more manufactured, I'll get gold edging, because I'm darn sure that's what it is. Because you do that, and then it usually just insta works in either slot. Yeah, I even covered moving the camera whilst I did that, as you saw, and I switch it off, stick it in the other slot. This is where it may work. It should do, because I've just cleaned it. It's modern solder. I don't know how its conductivity compares to leaded. Look, it works now. But you can see the cotton bud has got all that lead on it. So yeah, get decent quality slots and get gold plated PCBs. So getting near the end here, you can see I created Operation Wolf. It's a bit of homebrew, I think, from 2006 from Toybox, and it's a great little port actually. I'll just show you a few seconds of that. So it's got all the intro stuff and everything. It's really nice, really good use of colour, and it'll run on a standard MSX with I think 8K of RAM. It's only a 48K ROM. There may be a larger version of this, because I did see somewhere 512K version. So yeah, some of the sprites are sort of single colour and stuff, but it's really good. It's really fast, really playable. The hit detection is really good on it as well. Anyway, the final point here is revisiting the copper tape. That game didn't need any copper tape on at all. After the firmware update, I did sort of wonder, because Stephen seems to have fixed the timing for the rear slot, and I think it was timing, it might not be. I think Stephen said it wasn't timing, but whatever he's fixed, the rear slot works, and as I sort of explained earlier, copper tape in between the cart connections either on either side there would stop it from working at all when it's grounded, which made me wonder if it was like an impedance thing, and I thought maybe it's not an issue with these carts here, but it is this. I'm just you can see I actually peeled this off. I stuck it back down, but I'm going to redo this piece of copper tape, but it gives me an opportunity to show you at the end of this video here that the MSX is working perfectly now. Stephen has ironed out the bugs in the firmware. It works with the 9938, works with the 9958 when I've got some wire mods. The final version will have jumpers for the 9958, but if I just take this out, and you can see we were playing that from the rear slot, put it in the first slot. So working alright with the copper tape on there. We'll just hit fire just to get the game to start. So yeah, that looks okay. I'll put it in the rear slot. This is where it may need a clean. Is it going to be super sulky or not? Nope, looks working in the rear slot as well. But the key here is if we just literally just remove this copper tape. Let's just leave it sort of flapping in the breeze like that, because I want to use that wire. I'll make sure it's not short or anything. Put it in the front slot, because the front slot is quite reliable compared to my rear slot. And look at that, straight away, it doesn't work. So there you go, it's all about the game, the specific game that's on these carts, and the copper tape. It is essential. It'll just mostly boot loop. Sometimes you might get the game title, you know, the Konami bit. Sometimes you get sound like that one. So it is a bit narrower than before, but it is covering all 4 traces. Yeah, and I'm going to guarantee that's just going to work first time now. It'll be like first time every time. There we go. So with the wrist strap on here, I've removed the 9958, and you can see we've got a number of pins lifted out here. So from the end here we've got 5 pins that go in the socket, then those 2 out. One of them is floating, I think that's the weight pin, it's not used at the moment. And I'll show you some screenshots from the tech specs for the 2 chips, and a little guide of modifications, which I think Stephen sent me originally, and that helped me out. But yeah, we just got like the odd wire here, you know, one goes all the way over here, but it's only on this side of the chip here that I've had to lift those 3 pins out. They just sit outside the socket, and here is just joined up. The pin here is the first one I talked about, pin 4 to pin 1. So you can see the pin out differences between the 9938 and the 9958 here. And this table from the 9958 tech specs actually just kind of list the differences. So you've got differences on pin 4, 5 and 6. 5 and 6 aren't a big deal, they just change from I/O to output, and then 8, 21, 26 and 27. So I think in general V reset and H reset probably need a low. I could be wrong, I could have had high to those. As I say, pin 5 and 6 can ignore because they're just sync and it passes through as normal. The important one there is pin 21, which is now a VDD on the 9958. Now one thought that did cross my mind is when doing jumpers, you need to be careful there, because if you look at the 9938 side for that pin, it was actually a video output pin. So I presume composite, yeah, so if you're not careful with a jumper mod there, you could end up feeding 5 volts into that video output. Yeah, and the weight pin might be something Stephen modifies yet for the final version. I think he's looking at the SCC sound chip stuff at the moment, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that. Well, ironically, wait and see what happens to the weight pin. Stephen kindly provided me a link to this earlier on. This page quite nicely summarises the required mods. But those mods should be catered for with a few jumpers on the final revision, so you'll be able to switch between the 3.8 or the 5.8, you know, depending on whether you've got the MSX2 VDP or, like I have now, the 2 Plus VDP. And of course Stephen's firmware updates not only fixed the rear slot here, but fixed basic on the MSX2 Plus ROM. So in retrospect, in the first video, you know, we're using the MSX2 Plus BIOS here, and that's the thing, it's 2 chips actually. There's 2, there's the BIOS I think, and then basic or something like that. There's like a, you know, one ROM contains basic, I think, and the other one's got some extended BIOS or something. And it makes sense, doesn't it? If we were using a 9938 and MSX2 VDP, why would that work with the 2 Plus ROM. It wouldn't. So, you know what? I feel a bit of egg on my face, really. It's obvious why that wasn't working in part 1. But now the 2 Plus VDP will work with, you know, either BIOS, the MSX2 or the MSX2 Plus, as you'd expect. I think the 9938 will still glitch, just like it did in part 1 with the 2 Plus ROM. So there will be a part 3, because I think I'm going to try and put this in a case, get a nice keyboard for it. I'll do some captures. You know, we're not going to be tinkering around with copper tape in part 3, that's for sure. I'm sure you'll be relieved to hear that. But we might also be able to ask Stephen a few questions as well, and maybe showcase some of your channels. Anybody out there's got a channel where you've got an MSX, if you'd like to take part, just let me know. I've got a few clips and things and some photos of various people's boards that we'll share in the next part as well. But we'll do some direct captures of some of the games, some of the bits of homebrew and stuff. Yeah, again, this video has gone on quite long. Anyway, massive thanks to Stephen Learey. Huge respect. The most respect I could probably come up with, I think. It's incredible. I love this little MSX, as I said in part 1. It's fantastic. I have played the heck out of this over Christmas. I do hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel, please see the Ko-fi and Patreon links down below. Catch you in the next video.